we go. This is the right one. So just for the recording, hello, everybody. My name is Colby. I'm the support guy at GameSheet a lot of the time. If you guys ever have issues and reach out, you'll likely talk to me or Kurt, who you may have talked to yesterday. Tonight's purpose is that we're going to be going through the team dashboard for you, kind of showing you how to access your own team's information, how to create your account, where to see your rosters, how to edit things, get them in, and all that. So if you guys have any kind of questions throughout, definitely don't hesitate to unmute yourself and ask the question. If you're more comfortable raising your hand, I know that there's the little button down there. I'll keep an eye out. I also will pull the chat out just in case anybody has any questions. But if I'm ignoring chat, just let me know and I will take a look. So with that, the first thing to kind of explain is kind of what GameSheet is as a system and kind of how it works together. So the main piece that I'm going to be showing you tonight is what we refer to as the team dashboard. And the team dashboard is, your manager's administrator area where you're going to see all of your games, you're going to see all of your rosters, you have access to your team stats, and pretty much anything related to your profile. So if you want your post-game emails and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing my screen here, and I'm up in Saskatchewan. We've been getting some bad weather today, so I'm going to stop sharing my video just because sometimes that makes the screen recording better. Is everybody seeing my screen here? You should see GameSheet Inc.
Yep, we're seeing it.
Okay, perfect. Sometimes it doesn't come through, so I just like to make sure. All right, perfect. So teams.gamesheet.app. This is going to be where you guys are interacting with everything. And it's a really simplified view for you guys as team managers. So let me pull that out of the way here. I have a couple examples of what an invitation code might look like for you. And what the invitation codes are these are the pieces that the leagues would send out. Let me pull it down here in my screen. And these codes right here are going to be how you create your accounts, how you add access to your accounts, and I'll go over both of the ways with you. So first, we'll say that I'm going to grab the Rush team here, because I'm from Saskatchewan, and we're going to create an account. We're going to go down to register, and again, if you already have an account, I'll show you how to add a permission to your existing account. But in this case, we're going to register, and we're going to put in that team invitation code. If you ever have a space at the end of here, it may give you a little bit of an error. So just make sure there's no spaces. Click continue, and it will give you a little preview. So it'll tell you, what season this belongs to. In this case, it's my demo season. The team, you can take a look at the roster. Sorry, let me just give me 2 seconds here. From here, once you can go in and click continue, that's where you're going to be putting in all of your registration information for your account. So obviously this is something that you would only have to do the first time. Perfect. All right, and then a password. Once you get all that done, create the account. Basically, all it's going to do is create the account, log you right into the dashboard. No secondary authentication that you guys need to do. From this point, you're logged in and everything's set up and ready to go. As you can see, you can kind of see your schedule. If you have any past games, obviously at this point you won't, but this is where all of your completed games would show up, as well as any future games. You can kind of take a look here. You'll see that I have a scheduled game right here. That's because it's showing me my past events. You can disable that if you want to. But if I click into one of these games, you will see that it has all of the game information. And if you're familiar with the system, this is very similar to what you would see on like the league websites. And so from here, you can click this little actions button in the top and download your score sheet. So that's this, download this piece right here. So that's how you would get your PDF score sheets if you should ever need them. If you ever wanted to, we go back to the schedule here. If you ever wanted to print off all of your score sheets at the end of the season, you can click this little actions button and then download all of your score sheets. At this point, obviously, I only have the one completed game, but it's nice kind of at the end of the season, you can throw in your email and then it just sends you score sheets at the end, which is nice. Scheduled games are the same. You can click into a scheduled game. You'll see there's no actions right here because editing a schedule is something that you need an elevated level of permissions for. But here you can still take a look at the games. If you have, if you've played each other in the past, it'll give you some kind of team versus team stats. But that's more just kind of quick reference. On the side here, you'll see the calendar. Obviously, it'll give you kind of a little overlay. This is kind of a brand new feature. So in the future, you're going to be able to kind of click on these, see a little bit more information for the games. But right now, the calendar is more of a quick reference. So just kind of a so you know. And this is also formatted to use mobile. So if you have, a mobile phone, it just basically takes away that calendar view. And this whole teams.gamesheet.app view is really formatted for the phones. So you guys can really take advantage of having it bookmark it. And that's what I've tended to do is bookmark this, and then it works fantastic. Looking over at the actions button, there were a couple other options. There were practices and new events. So we added new game types to the system, one of which is a practice. So basically what a practice is it's not going to show up on your league schedule. It's something that only shows up for you and anybody else who has team access. And what you can do is you can go in here and you can add, a practice whenever your practices are. If you have kind of reoccurring practices at, let's say, 7 p.m. every Thursday, let's say they're an hour long. Maybe if they're only half hour long, you need to go in here and update that. In this case, I'll leave it. It gives you the time zone. That's by default off of whatever device that you're on. And then the location. So in this case, we'll say test rink. This kind of brings up a good note. You'll see that these are all suggested rinks. What these rinks are live barn locations. Not so much for practices, but for regular games. It's, if you have live barn at your rink, you can kind of use that video broadcast. In other cases, you can just ignore it. So you don't have to pay any mind to that. And then once you click your create practice game, it's now going to be in, it'll now be in your side here, and you'll see it kind of as a quick reference. The other one is a game event. That would be like if you guys have like a year-end party or something that you want to do. And again, this is only on the team dashboard. It's not something that you would be able to score on the iPad, just information for the teams. Any questions on the schedule, whether completed or scheduled games? Okay, so the next piece of this would be the roster. So if I click on the roster here, obviously here I already have everybody added. So this is kind of just a quick reference. These are all placeholders. So if you don't have position, whatever the case is, it just shows up as the placeholder. But if you wanted to edit anything, just click on the row and you'll be brought into their own detail page. And from there you can say, this is going to be an attack player. You can update any of the player profile information if you want to, and then save those changes. And then that's where you're going to have all that information kind of come on through. If you have to add somebody new, you can click the actions button on the top here, and you'll have a couple ways to do that. You can add a new player or a new coach, and that just basically gives you that details menu where you can kind of fill everything out. You'll see all the required fields with the asterisks here. You also have the ability to go in and import from CSV. So this is kind of probably more the case preseason. When you're kind of importing everybody all at once, it's a good idea to go in there to CSV. And then you have a little template that you can download here. Just as a quick reference, earlier today, I imported a roster for one of our other demo teams. And this is what the CSV looks like. So you just indicate if it's a player or a coach, you put in their first and their last name, leave the external ID empty, and then you put in their position and then the numbers. Obviously, with this one here, these are hockey, you would have attack or, transition, whatever position that they were. A lot of the times people will also just leave this right empty and they can just indicate the goalie. And that is all you need from a app perspective. Did I hear a question come up there? I thought I heard somebody talking. Okay, no worries. I'm going to go back over here. And of course, it has all of the valid positions. So if you're not sure what to put down for attack or runner, it has everything that you need right in here. Any questions on the roster bit? All right.
I don't
All
have
right.
a question, but I just want to clarify that you do need to
Yes.
put a goalie. It will not let
Yes,
you, I mean,
that
whether
is
you do it in advance or do it at game time, you can't start a game without identifying a goalie.
That's 100% right. Yes, absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's why I say, even if you're going through and you only indicate the goalie, that's all the app needs.
Right.
On the app, it will give you an error. It'll say, you have to select a starting goalie. So it'll give you a prompt. So if you ever get to that point, you'll kind of know what to do. But yes, that's very much worth noting that you need to have a goalie listed. Any other notes or questions? All right. The last piece here is seasons, and this is basically your stats. So if you wanted to see the full season stats, or if you wanted to see all of the completed games that have taken place, obviously this is a new demo season. This is where you would have reference to all those stats. So this is the same thing that would be on your website, but as a manager, what I would use this for is kind of a reference to know if you've been added to separate tournaments. So for example, if somebody here is going to be playing in, an invitational tournament at some point this spring, I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but once you accept a new invitation code, this little drop down box will then list any other areas that you might have access to. So it might have the lacrosse, Easter weekend or something. A little bit too early for that, but only thing
Yeah,
that
we
came to
don't
mind.
really have tournaments for field except the one that already happened, but certainly I'm
Okay.
assuming a lot of people on here would be able to use that information for box because there tends to be a lot of overlap between the two. So it's
Okay.
good to know.
Perfect. Yeah. So perfect. Good to know for me too. Yeah. So not so much for field, but for box. Yeah. Because I know we have lots of box tournaments. I wasn't sure about the field.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. So to kind of reiterate, we have the three main areas, well, and two main areas for coaches, and that is that your schedule and your roster. Schedule, the only thing here, it's more of a quick reference with a little bit of inter-team communication with those practices and with the events. So you can go in there, share it with the assistant managers or whatever the case is there. And then being able to obviously go into that was a scheduled game. I'm sorry. Go into completed games and then get your score sheets that way. And as a note, when you accept these invitation codes, you get subscribed to what we call post-game emails. So you're going to get an email copy that has a direct link to this game so that you can get these a little bit easier. The roster, really the big things here obviously are creating the roster initially and then updating any kind of changes down the line. The easiest way is to import them from CSV kind of all at once, but there's absolutely no problem with going through and adding them one at a time if that's what you're more comfortable with. And then finally, the seasons. That one's more of a quick reference guide for all of your season stats and that kind of thing. The other piece that I want to kind of make a note of is not so much team specific, but more your manager account and what you have access to. So if I go on the top here, I have a couple different options available to me. So the first one, view iPad keys, is a relatively simple. This is just if I ever forgot what my league's iPad key was, I can come in here and have a quick reference. Everybody in this league is going to have the same key, and this key is only used on the iPad scoring app to score the games. So if you ever forgot it, that's how you reference the key. Invite user. This is more so for, let's say you're the manager and you want to share access to the assistant coach or to the head coach. You can click invite user and you can pop in their email. This is how they would get the same access. So they would be able to see your schedule and your roster. And this is how you would kind of take advantage of those practices or new events. The edit profile email notifications, these are fairly straightforward. Obviously, if you ever needed to update your password or your email, you can do that from within the profile. And then email notifications. As I said, when you accept an invitation code, it'll automatically subscribe you to the post-game emails. So if you ever don't want to get those, just disable them and you can save that. I'm going to keep this on for now. The piece below it here, accept invitation. So this would be the case where if you have access to multiple teams, perhaps, or if you were getting a tournament invitation code, you would click accept invitation, and then it takes you back to this page that we were at initially. And if I go back to my little sheet here and grab the Toronto Rock code, paste that in there, you'll see that it kind of is the same workflow, gives me the team, tells me, kind of gives me an example for the roster. I can click continue. It gives me this ability to link a team, which basically what this means is, let's say I was accepting a tournament code, it would link your roster with the tournament. So basically any changes that you make in your regular season would then be affected in the tournament. So you don't have to add your roster a bunch of different times. In this case, we're not going to link anything because they're two totally different teams. And we're going to accept the code. From there, it just pops you right back into your account. It'll do a quick refresh automatically. And then if I click the down arrow, that's where I now have access to multiple teams. If I wanted to see the Toronto Rock information, I could come back over here and see, their games or see their roster if I needed to. And if it ever happened where you accepted a code that you shouldn't have, you can click that edit button and you can delete the team from your account. So basically all that does is it just removes it from your permissions. So it's not going to do anything to the team itself. It just removes it from your own personal view. And the last thing here is the switch to dashboard and the help and support. Switch to dashboard basically just brings you back to the original view. If you have used GameSheet in the past, this was just the view that's more so for league management. This new view that we have here is relatively new, but it's a much more simplified view. So I wouldn't recommend getting used to the dashboard. In the next 6 months, it'll probably be taken away from the manager users. So I'm not even going to bother going into it. Again, exactly the same information that's available to you. It's just a little bit more confusing because there's a lot more areas. And then the help and support is if you ever needed access to us, this is a great way for coaches to have direct access. So this is obviously our articles and support documents, but more importantly at the bottom here, this contact us is a good way for you to send us an email. Let us know if something's not working for you. If you need help with a specific process, you can let us know from here. And it's more just a easy way to get in touch. And that is pretty much the system for team managers. Again, we've kind of tried really hard to make it as easy as possible, kind of stripping it out so that you only have, the two different options. But again, something that we try very hard to do is to kind of support all the way throughout the season. So if you guys have issues, whether it's now or in a couple of months from now, definitely reach out and we're happy to help. And if there are any questions, I can go over any questions that anybody has now.
Do we have time to review kind of the scoring of a game? Because a lot of the way it looks in the field is there's parent volunteers that do most of it, which is frequently the manager, speaking as a manager for years. So if we could just kind of review just, the loading the roster or changing the roster, adding goals, adding penalties, etc. That would be perfect.
Absolutely. I will definitely do that. Here, let me get that pulled up. There was also a question in chat asking, so I can only log in and register once I have an actual invitation code. And the answer is yes. You can only register an account once you have that invitation code for your team.
And I have sent all the invitation codes for all of the Springfield teams to the applicable field director. So if for some reason there's a manager or coach that needs their invitation code, they should all be with your field director. If you are a coach and haven't received it, or a manager and haven't received it, I'll put my email in the chat.
Literally can't get my headphones on, so sorry.
Okay, Asher, come up here.
But yeah, you can send me an email as well.
I got it.
Okay.
Was there anything else that you were wanting to say, Kristen, before I showed the iPad?
No. If we can
okay. I didn't want to interrupt you. That's all. All right, perfect.
Okay.
No worries.
Thanks, Colby. Thank you.
Awesome. Here, no worries. All right, so let's pull this up here. I'm just going to start sharing my iPad screen. Sometimes with Apple, they like to be a little funny. So just give me 2 seconds. Should be coming through now. Are you guys seeing that?
Yep, we have it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So I'm just pulling up the iPad key so I can remember it here. So when you first get the app, it's available on the App Store. So as long as it's downloaded, it's this white and black logo here on the back left. If it's not available, it's a free download. Once it's downloaded, this is where it's going to prompt for your iPad key. So in this case, it's going to be that iPad LAC demo.
And all of
And then
ours,
sign in.
because we're supplying the iPads, by the time you get it, the game will already be loaded onto it. Like that will be done by the
Oh,
convener of the
beautiful.
field. Although it's good, as I said, this is still very good information for people to have. If for some reason they get it and it,
It's not on there for some reason. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's perfect because that helps tons. So ideally at this point, then you should already see a game listed here. But if for whatever reason you don't, you just click that new game button and then load from schedule. And as long as you're logged in with the right access key, it's going to pull in the right game. So in this case, I'm going to say it's game number 1 here. And when I click load game, this is technically the only piece of piece that you need Wi-Fi for. If you don't have internet access, that's not a problem. You can score the game 100% offline. It's just loading the game initially and then loading it at the end of the game where you're going to need to have an internet connection. So from this point, I'm going to click on the game and then I get brought into game details. And again, so this is where you guys will likely see it. You'll tap on anywhere on the row and then it gets brought to game details. It'll ask you for a start time, which is different than the scheduled start time, just in case you're off for any reason. This one it'll always ask for. And then it'll also allow you to put in, your scorekeeper information if that's something that you'd like to do. Some leagues like to mandate that. I think it's a great idea. You can also update anything in here that needs to happen. If you scroll down, this is a just so you know, you can also update penalty and overtimes on the app. Very likely you'll never have to do it, but it's good to know that it's available. Once you get the game details done, that's where you're going to kind of review the lineups. And so this is where, if anybody is going to be suspended, you can tap on their status and mark them as, suspended, let's say, and then we'll say this is going to be their 1 of 2 games. If anybody was, injured or just not there for some reason, those are also statuses that you can say. We'll say not playing. If anybody was, for example, maybe the team didn't specify they had a goalie before, you can just tap on the positions and then update everything here. So it's all scrollable. Sometimes it doesn't look like it. So if you don't see the position, just start to scroll and you'll see it. And the other thing that can be edited here is the jersey number. So if somebody forgets a jersey number, you can always go in and make that change so they can be, 31 for the game. When you make a change, it asks you if you'd like to save this to the roster or only for the game. So for example, if you're adding a goalie position, it'd be a great idea to save it to the roster so that next time they come in as a goalie. But for this case, I would probably say no, only save it for this game if it's something like a jersey that they're borrowing. If I have 2 or more goalies on the roster, it'll make me select the starter. But if you only have 1 goalie, it'll automatically put them in net. So you don't have to worry about it if you only have the 1. And then once everything's verified, everything looks good, you're going to go up to the top here and give it a quick signature. I believe it's the same for the field lacrosse, but usually it's just the head coaches that need to sign.
No, it's not. For us, everyone has to sign.
Everybody. Okay. So then that
Head
little
coach,
sign
assistant
button
coach,
will be
trainer.
available for everybody. And everybody will have to do that before it allows you to go forward.
Right.
So
Can you
perfect.
scroll
And that's
down?
just
We had a question about asking AP players, adding AP players,
absolutely.
which is at the bottom. Yeah. So
Yep.
just, yeah.
Absolutely. So AP players, if you ever had to add affiliate player, you just tap on the add affiliate player. Here, let me go to the other roster since I've already signed.
Oh.
Go down to the bottom and then you can search. So let's say I'm looking for myself. I don't exist in the system. If the person does already exist, you can just select them from the list here, or you can click create new. And that's where it would be just, a simple put in whatever information you need there, first name, last name, and jersey. And then if you wanted to, you could specify a position, but it's not required. And then you can add. And again, this is where you could either save to roster or only for this game. If you're going to save to the roster, they're going to get obviously added to the game roster. AP players will always show up as sitting out on the iPad. So if I had myself already listed as an affiliate player, I would already be listed on the bottom. I would just have the status of sitting out. So if there's the second or third time somebody's playing on the same team, they're probably already going to be listed. It would just be a matter of going down to the bottom and then updating them. This quick question about the league. Is it often where you have one player on multiple teams that play each other, or
No, you
I
can
would
only be, you can only be rostered to one team. Obviously, you can AP from a
Mhm.
younger age group, but
Oh,
you'll
okay,
only ever be
perfect.
rostered to a single team.
Perfect. So in that case, what I would say then is to make it when I'm going in here and I add my affiliate player. Oh, I thought it was going to ask me if I want to save it to the roster or only for this game. I would say affiliate players just add for this game only, because once you add them, they're always going to show up when you start typing in their name. And that just makes sure that there's no silliness when they get added to somebody's roster by accident.
Right.
Any other questions on the roster? That was a good one for sure. AP players. All right. I'll also come back if any questions are come up here. All right. So once the visitor and the home coach signs, they would typically hand it off to the scorekeeper. How do I change goalie? I'll go over that for sure. That's a good one, the goalie. Transition to my scoring area. And then this is where everybody goes through to add in their goals, penalties. I saw another chat come up here, and the question was, what was the check for update thing? That's a good question. When I sign for the rosters, it goes away. But before you sign for the roster, above the coaches, there's a little check for update. And basically what that is if the roster is ever out of sync. So let's say that somebody loads the game on an iPad, too far in advance, and then somebody else, maybe the coach, makes a change to their roster on GameSheet, that update button will just pull any changes into the iPad app. So you don't have to delete the game and reload it. You can just simply tap that update button, and then it will pull in your up-to-date roster. And again, that's only their pre-sign. So the fact that I've already signed for the rosters made them go away, but it would be right above the coaches. So back to the scoring. So for this piece,
you can unsign it, right?
You can unsign it. Absolutely.
Right. So if you've already signed it, it doesn't mean you can't. If you went, oh, I signed it, shoot, I need to change something, just change it back.
Yep, absolutely. And all I did here, let me give it a quick signature again, is I just tap where it says signed. I tap edit roster, and then it takes it away.
Yeah.
So absolutely, you can take that off.
The invitation comes from your home club. So as I said, I've provided all the invitation codes to the home club. They should have provided it to you. So the club should be providing it to the coach and the manager. If it is not, as I said, I've already put my email in the chat. If you're a coach or manager and have not received it, just reach out to me and I can either coordinate with your club and make sure that you get it.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate you keeping an eye on that too. This brings up a really good point right now because it kind of happened organically. And that's if you look on the left-hand side, the white badges that say warnings and the orange ones that say errors. So the white warnings, if I tap on the game details one, it'll give me something that, maybe some data is missing, but it's nothing that's going to prevent your game from uploading at the end. So this one, it says that there's a scorekeeper that's not specified. If I click on that, it'll take me to wherever the issue is, and I can go ahead and add that if I want to. The orange errors, on the other hand, those are things that will prevent a game from being uploaded. So in this case, it was because I have more than one person with the same jersey. And if I tap on that, it'll highlight both those people. So in this case, I'm just going to mark as sitting out. And that'll fix the issue. And then I can go back up to the top and I can re-sign for my roster. So again, white warnings are just data validation issues. They're going to say something like a scorekeeper's not added or something like that, which is, again, right up at the top here. I just saw the chat come in about a timekeeper. The only thing that we have on here is for the scorekeeper.
So my suggestion, we're going to be sending something out again
Okay.
from the OMFLL that kind of has like a kind of one pager on how to add a goal, how to do this, just so you have
Mhm.
it. And you can put both names there. So that is kind of what we're asking
yeah.
people to do, is to
Nice.
kind of put, you know, Michelle Faulkner, Orangeville / Kristen Valentine, Newmarket, just so that we
Oh, of
know if
course.
we have a question on that. We're
Awesome.
not asking for phone numbers, but yeah, if we can have just people put that in there, but we'll be sending that out in kind of an email that we send out to all the clubs as well. But just for the people on the phone, that's kind of our hope is that both names
Perfect.
can be
Yeah,
put
and
there.
it's just a text field, so
Right.
there's no problem whatsoever with that.
Yeah, I tested it.
Oh, perfect. There you go. Of course. All right, so back over to this area here. So the scoring app. So I'll go over it kind of top to bottom from the top left here. So the first thing here is the Scorekeeper notes. So if you ever had to do an injury or a timeout or a general note about the game, it's available in audio or text form. And obviously you can specify, you know, the player who was injured or the team that called the timeout with all that. The middle here is the period selector. So as the scorekeeper, you need to know to kind of manually transition period to period. The right-hand side here, we have a game clock that it gives you the ability to use, which I will enable just to show you here. But there's also the help document and then the support. So if there's ever an issue that you guys can't solve, you can click this contact support and it'll send us the iPad and all the games on the iPad. So maybe there's an error that you can't figure out or whatever the case is, we can get that taken care of for you. The game clock is kind of nice because what'll happen is as the game clock's going, you'll kind of press the play button. It'll keep tracking down automatically. Once you have a goal or a penalty, you're going to tap on the pause it. First thing it'll do is it'll bring up the time. I find that often the people who are scorekeeper are also doing some kind of arena clock. So typically people will take the arena clock as the source of truth. And then this one's a second or two behind. So that's where it's kind of nice where you can go in there and say, oh no, it was 52. Once you exit out of this and you go into add your goal, and the way to add goal is tapping add goal, it'll automatically pull down the period that you're in and it'll automatically pull down the time, which is really nice. So all you have to do is say who got the goal. And then if there were any assists, if you don't have that scoring clock, I'm just going to take it off now. It's just one step further. So we're going to tap add goal, and then it asks for the time of the goal. So a little bit faster once you kind of get into it with the app and you kind of become more familiar with it if you include that game clock. But it, like I say, it is only one extra step that you save. So don't stress too much about that right away.
And is the game clock, because actually I don't know much about the game clock, is it continuous?
It
Like, so
is,
if you're
yes.
stopping to add a goal, it just keeps going on in the background?
No. So you want to pause it when you add a goal. So no, it's
We
not
don't.
continuous.
Ours is runtime. So we are runtime
Oh.
except the last 2 minutes of the last period. So
I
that was
see.
my question, is does it keep running? Like if we don't pause it, it will keep running?
Yes. So if you don't pause it, it'll keep running. The one thing is that when I tap add goal, obviously it doesn't pull down the time if it's running. You can see that in the background, it's still counting down, so it won't pause it at all. But you will have to just make sure to go ahead and add the time too.
Okay. Yeah, because we typically have one person, because we're outside in a field. So we typically don't have, like, as you said, an arena clock. So we typically have one person doing the timing on kind of their iPhone and another person marking the score. But I actually didn't realize you had that feature.
Yeah, this was brand new. And I mean, if you kind of used the system last year at all, this is new this year.
Okay.
So
I
think
don't
just
recall
in the
ever
fall.
seen that, because that's a great feature that we could potentially look at trying to use.
Yeah, definitely. And it, like I say, it's pretty easy. If you ever have to update, all you have to do is tap on the score. So if somebody accidentally fat fingered something and paused it when they weren't supposed to, it's something I would do. Then you can go in here and kind of update it, kind of catch up, and then kind of press play when you kind of get there, and then you're back in sync.
So the question we had was about U9, that's only 2 periods. We have customized our seasons. So U9 will only show 2 and there'll be 20s. U11 will show 2 that are 25s, etc. U13 will be 4 12s, and U15 and 17 will be 4 15s. But that's already all done. So I've already customized each division. So you will see, and you won't see OT because we don't have OT in the regular season at all. So what you see at the top will be customized depending on the game that you're scoring. So you don't need to worry about changing any of that, even in the game details, which I know Colby was showing us before. none of that will need to be done because we've already customized based on the age or the division of the game.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that makes it super nice when you have those division settings. It just pulls them in all automatically, so the scorekeepers don't have to think about it.
Okay.
From this point here, it is a good example. If you ever have a goal that you didn't need or you need to delete, it's all just swiping left. So when you swipe left anywhere in the app, it brings up those little delete buttons and you can get rid of them. If something was added incorrectly, for example, if maybe I put in the wrong person who got an assist, you can just tap on the column that is mistaken and then make that change. So let's say it was 29 who got the assist. Penalties are very similar to the goals. So if I tap add penalty, it's going to ask me for the clock time. We'll say maybe 3 minutes left, and we'll say there was a minor. All of the penalty lists, this one was imported before we created the fields. So you'll have your own specific field penalty lists, and know that the durations that you choose will filter out the results. So if you're putting in, you know, a 10-minute, you're only going to get your 10-minute penalties or your 5-minute penalties or so on. In this
so
case,
for us, there's a 0.5 option, which will bring up your technical penalties. So if you do 0.5, it'll only bring up technicals. And if you do 1, 2, or 3 is where it will pull up all your personal fouls. So you can't accidentally put a technical foul with a 1 minute. Like it defaults. So as soon like your technicals are all half a minute. So as Colby said, it defaults. So ours are either 0.5, which is our 30-second technicals, or the personals, which are 1, 2, or 3. And then there's also a banishment option in there if there's a banishment.
Perfect. That's awesome. Yeah, I know I had seen that lacrosse had 2 or 3 or maybe 4 different penalty lists.
Yeah.
But yeah, the penalty lists, they all sort in. So that's the main thing, is just know that when you select your duration, obviously here it's a little bit different. It's only going to show you the penalties associated with that. And there's a search on the top. So if you have a lot of different results, you can search by either the code or by the description. So either or you can search by. Once you put in the code, it'll also say who got the penalty. So in this case, we'll say 26. And the only thing that it doesn't automatically do is that on time. So the on time is just when the penalty's over. So if you would like to, you can go in there and you can change it. So in this case, it's a 2-minute penalty. So I would say it was over at 1 minute. It's an optional field, not something that is 100% required at all. So just so you know. At the bottom is the shot counters. So as I transition period to period, you'll see that the outside is the period shots, and then the inside has the running total of how many shots.
Yeah, we're not asking people to do shots, so if they want to, they're welcome to, but that's certainly not a requirement. So if everyone's going on here, oh my God, I have to be counting shots, you don't. That's not something.
Perfect. And
we had someone this past weekend that really wanted to, but it's certainly, we have not changed that. We are not asking people to do that.
Good to know. Perfect. Awesome. So then the last thing here is the goalie shifts. So if you ever had to change the goalie, or if you're going to pull the goalie for an empty net, or for whatever the reason is here, all you have to do is tap change beside the goalie and then change goalie here. So from this point, you're going to put in the time that the new goalie goes in net. So we'll say maybe 1 minute left in the 3rd period. They're going to be pulling the goalie for an empty net, or if they want to, they can go ahead and they can put somebody else in. Usually what the case for this would be that you would kind of go in kind of the beginning of the 3rd period, maybe. But as long as they're specified as a goalie, they can be added in as a goalie shift. And quick note here, this is also part of that whole delete. So whether it's a penalty, a goal, or a goalie shift, everything can be deleted just by swiping left on the app. Are there any questions on the app? All right. So from this point, we'll say the game was wrapped up. What we would do is tap end game on the top right here. Put in the time the game ended. I said it was a 3:30 game, so we'll just say 4:30. And then this is the point where the referees will do all their work. So here I'll add myself. In this case, I'm not in here already, so I'll just say Colby B. We're not going to make you see my whole last name again. And then they can also add in the emails. So if the referee had a report or something that they wanted to keep a copy of, they can put in their email, make sure that it's toggled. And then when they click add, they obviously can enable or disable that. And then they'll get access to their score sheet, which is really nice here. From here, they would just add their notes, same as a scorekeeper, either audio or text. And then once the referee's ready to go, they would give it a quick sign. And then on the top right there, you'll see that it says lock and upload. And that's how they cancel out the game. Question here. What is the referee needs to do a report? What if the referee needs to do a report? Do the scorekeepers have to stay?
So I can take that one. No. No. So the referee will do their report when it's uploaded. So once they're done and it's uploaded, whoever has access, managers, coaches, will get a copy of the game sheet, which will show what the penalty was. So it'll show that they got, an expulsion, a 3-minute expulsion for unnecessary roughness or something. It will not show the referee report any more than in the past. The referee report was never on the copy that went to the teams. It was always on the copy that got kept by the league. So you certainly don't need to stay. And then any outcome from that, as I said, you'll be able to see on the game sheet what the penalty was, and then obviously someone from the OMFLL will be contacting the club or the center just to advise what the suspension is.
Awesome. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And so from that point, once the referee makes their notes, if they do make any kind of notes, and they click the lock and upload, quick note with this, when they click lock and upload, it's going to kind of push the game out if you have an internet connection. But if you're at, a field that doesn't have internet connection, I would still get the referees to lock and upload. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Because what happens is it'll transition you to this page and you'll get this little blue upload icon on the right. So if you don't have an internet access, it'll just stay on this page. And then it'll give you a note that says, no internet connection, try again when you have a connection. In this case, obviously it succeeded. But the nice thing is that if you go back over to it, it would hide the officials report. So if you ever had something where there was maybe something sensitive going on, the referee can kind of lock and upload the game, which will transition it to that uploadable state where it's locked so nobody can see it. And then once you have an internet connection, all you do is tap on that blue icon and it'll push it up. So you can always try to upload it again after the fact. So that is the iPad app. And I see there are a couple other questions here. So the ref captures their notes later on somehow. So the referees would capture their notes at the end of the game, kind of on this screen here. It'll list any kind of penalties that may have occurred, and then they can, like I say, either do a specific penalty note, or they can do a game note.
Yeah,
Right. So when the timekeeper or the timekeeper scorekeeper are done, the same thing as you did with the game sheet, you hand it to the referee, and then the timekeeper doesn't need to wait because they'll ultimately get their copy of the game sheet later. And the referee on the iPad itself, there's a spot that they can either type or they can actually also leave an audio report, which I find is what our referees tend to do now, is they leave audio reports.
Yeah.
So the ref leaves with the iPad?
Correct. The ref will leave with the iPad if they need to do a report, and we have extra iPads, right? So that's kind of the advantage. So yeah, there's for any field, we'll have 2 iPads, one for the game that's going on and one that the other team can be using to kind of update their roster, etc. beforehand. So that's kind of the intent that we have.
Okay, so the scorekeeper, timekeeper can just hand the ref the iPad and say, here you go, see you later.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And then, the next question, if the game is locked and a team forgot to mark a suspended player. So yeah,
Yep.
If there's an issue discovered after the fact, it's just contacting the convener at the field, and then we have obviously the access to make changes as needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I just wanted to quickly show, sharing my desktop screen again here. This is what the post-game emails look like for the managers. So this is for the game that we just scored. So it kind of gives you a little rundown of the score, and then it gives you the ability to either see it in the team dashboard, which is basically just a quick view right into here, or you can go over and you can go into the league dashboard, which that would be more so if you were sending this to a convener for their reference. I would just go through the team dashboard yourself. And that was the last piece, just to kind of show the post-game emails. Are there any other questions on anything with the system, whether that's the iPad app or the game sheet side with the team dashboard, that anybody has questions about?
Just wanted to
Awesome.
say you did a good job explaining it. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you got something from it. And like I say, as long as you guys remember that you can kind of go through that help center, you can reach out to us directly if you do have questions. You know, we're here to help if anything goes wrong. But, you know, typically it's, you know, you get into your first game, you kind of see the process once, and then it's kind of, you know, it becomes a lot easier to kind of maintain going down the road, because everything's kind of new once you kind of sort out what you have access to. That's the confusing part. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, as the games go, everybody will kind of get more familiar.
Okay, well, thank you so much
Awesome.
for
Yeah,
doing this.
no.
This was great. Yeah.
I really appreciate everybody making time. I know, you know, 7:48 on a, you know, Tuesday, there's a lot to do. So thank you for, you know, having everybody come out as much as you guys have. I'll stop the recording here. And I'll
And yeah,
send
just
that
on the
to
recording, so I'll get it, and then we'll